Think for a moment about your last business conversation. What was your goal or your plan for the first 5 minutes of that conversation? Seriously, did you have a plan or do you just wing it and let luck take you wherever the conversation leads you? We're going to talk about a framework that serves as guardrails, not handcuffs, in the most critical moments of a business conversation. And do you know what those are? The first 5 minutes. Welcome to the Elite Business Connector podcast. I'm your host, Brian Buckley, husband of one, father of five, and on a mission to help you develop, deepen, and master your business communication skills. So here's this podcast episode's big idea. I'm going to introduce to you the first 5 minutes framework and how you can apply it in your very next meeting with a prospect or a customer that will give you an edge. It's a framework that will be completely setting you apart from everyone else, especially your competitors. So you in? Let's get to it. Today, I'm going to break down the first 5 minutes framework. Now, this is the same framework that I teach leaders, sales teams, and professionals everywhere. We're going to walk through the first minute, the middle 3 minutes, and the last minute. So hopefully you can finally stop wasting these most important minutes of every business conversation and learn to start leveraging them. So if you've ever walked away after a business conversation thinking that could have gone better, or someone lost you in the first minutes of a business conversation, this specific episode is for you. Now, I'm a big fan of frameworks because of both their simplicity, but also their power. So let's define a framework so we're on the same page. A framework is a simple, repeatable structure, not a rigid script, that helps you think clearly and act very intentionally in a real-world situation. Let me repeat that definition. A framework is a simple but yet repeatable structure, not a rigid script, that will help you think clearly and act very intentional in a real-world situation. Frameworks help people adapt to the moment while staying very intentional, and this is key in the first 5 minutes framework, that you're both adaptable and intentional in those first few minutes of any business conversation. Now, there are frameworks all around you, and here are 4 popular and well-known framework examples. The first one is the SWOT analysis. Think business strategy. SWOT's an acronym for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And this specific framework is used to assess companies, teams, products, or even strategies. The second example are SMART goals. So think goal setting. SMART is an acronym for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. And this framework helps crystallize, your dreams to turn them into goals that are very clearly defined. Third framework example would be the DISC personality test. So think communication and behavior. DISC is an acronym for dominance, influence, steadiness, conscientiousness. And this framework helps people to adapt their communication styles, to their different personalities. The last example would be the Eisenhower matrix. So think productivity. The Eisenhower matrix has 4 quadrants. For example, urgent versus important, not urgent versus not important. And this framework helps people to quantify where your time is actually being spent. So let's take a moment on why frameworks are powerful in the first place. The best frameworks actually share 3 very specific traits. First is they're memorable, meaning they're very easy to recall when you're under pressure. Second is they're flexible. You can adapt them to real life, and it's not just theory. And third is they're actionable. They tell you exactly where to focus in on in that moment. And that's exactly why the first 5 minutes framework is powerful in the context of a business interaction. First is memorable. It's easy to recall under the pressure of the first minute, the middle 3 minutes, and the last minute. It's also flexible. You can adapt it to the real life situation, not some theory of the business world, because you're actually connecting first. And then it's actionable. It tells you exactly where to focus, which is the first 5 minutes. And you could use it when? Immediately. Think of it again as a loose guide that gives you guardrails and not handcuffs. Guardrails keeps you on the road for the conversation, but you're still in control. Handcuffs are going to lock you in and they're going to restrict you. The end goal is to be very natural in that first 5 minutes, not tight and robotic, having to think through every little detail. But here's also a good question right out of the gate. Why even have a framework about the first 5 minutes of a conversation in the first place? Well, think about it. How often do you leave the opening moments of a conversation to complete chance? I know, me too. I used to do it all the time before I really started thinking it through the first 5 minutes framework. What happens is you're at the mercy of wherever the conversation goes, and there's no really clearly defined goal. And this happens all the time, and unfortunately, in a business conversation of all places, that it's all the more important to establish connection and quickly. My challenge is for you to leverage, not lose, the first 5 minutes moving forward. Well, what's to lose in the first 5 minutes, you may ask? Well, first is no momentum. Second is no actual real engagement with the other person. And third is there no early connection wins. Now, the first 5 minutes framework is in 3 logical sections. First minute, middle 3 minutes, think minutes 2 through 4, and then the last minute, minute 5. And each one has a focus area. First minute, think personal. Middle 3 minutes, think professional. And then the last minute, think problem. And each one has a structure. So think of it as a pull-down menu. The first minute, you read the room, begin the banter, and nail the name. The middle 3 minutes, you ask, you listen, and you learn. But you don't stop there, because the last minute, you avoid 3 pitfalls. You do the 2-step approach. And third is you set up for the 5 minutes plus the rest of the conversation. So let me give you a practical example of how you can put the framework into actual use. Let's say you have a sales call scheduled and you're going to meet with the potential customer. Normally you walk in, you stick out your hand, you hear the name, maybe all too often forget, and then you talk about whatever random thought comes to your mind or even to their mind. Now, it's polite small talk that may be feeling awkward or just weird. It goes until it dies down, and then you stumble your way into your sales pitch, ready or not. Sound kind of familiar? But what's actually been accomplished, if you really think about it? Well, you received a name or a few names that you may or may not remember. You talked about useless information, and you fumbled your way into the real reason you're there. Well, is it acceptable? I guess. It's the norm anyway. But is it ideal? Well, far from it. And definitely not the approach of an elite business connector. But think about this. What if you leveraged this framework to change the narrative and actually had a defined goal that felt very natural to you? Another way is using the first 5 minutes framework would be that if you knew the full name of the person you're going to meet with, and you're able to do some, let's say, some pre-intel on them and their company. This is before the 5 minutes clock even starts. And I call it, take the 5, before the 5, define the 5. You're taking 5 minutes before the first 5 minutes begins to find 5 connection points for your upcoming business conversation. So now you're prepared going into the conversation with some strong lead talking points, I call LTPs, that you can bring up immediately. You walk into the meeting, but you're also trained on what I call observational intelligence, or OQ, which allows you to read the room in the moment. And then you can decide on the spot if you're going to have your lead talking point be what you prepared in advance, or want to call an audible in the moment, and you comment on something you noticed right there on the spot. Now you're surprised, but you're thrilled you immediately caught the attention of the other person, and in mere seconds, they're locked into that conversation because you made it about them and what's important to them, not about you or aimless small talk wasting these precious moments. And instead of leading with a name, you led with a connection point with the other person that immediately engaged them into the conversation. Then still in the first minute, but not at the very beginning, that's when you actually introduce yourself in a creative way, then listen to capture the name of the other person and lock it in. Maybe you're asking about the spelling of their name or the origin of their last name or the backstory of how they received their name. And then you absolutely nail the name because you were focused. The goal of the first minute is simple. Make it about them. Not you, not your company, not what you have to say, not your solution, them. And the result? Two words: early connection. This is the ideal situation in that first minute. You read the room, you began the banter, and then you nailed the name. Now, all this happened in the first minute. Well, why? Because you had a plan to leverage the first minutes with the first 5 minutes framework with the goal to begin connecting quickly. But wait, there's more. You then transition into the middle 3 minutes with the 3 do skills of an elite business connector called going all in. Ask, listen, learn. ALL. You move from the personal side in the first minute to the professional side in minutes 2 through 4. Here you do something, again, nobody else does. You ask questions. Crazy, right? Questions is in plural, meaning more than one. Most rarely ask any questions, let alone 2, so you're automatically different from everybody else asking at least 2 questions. And what kind of questions would you ask? That's a good question. You ask questions that are curious, continual, and clarifying. Then you actively listen with full engagement so you can learn about them and their challenges. Curious questions will show you that you have genuine interest in them. Continual, which shows you're listening and you care about them. And then clarifying to understand exactly what the customer wants or frustrated with in the moment. Now, your questions on the professional side came from the intel you gained before the meeting by using pre-read the room concept, take the 5, before the 5, define the 5. And your questions also develop because you're asking more than one question on the same line of thought to dig deeper where that real and valuable information lies. And your questions, well, they don't only engage the other person, but you show you care about them, but also their situation. It also gives you incredible intel that you're going to learn by actively and intentionally listening. And I call this locked in listening. It's rare and incredibly powerful. Now, this is the ideal situation in the middle 3 minutes. You ask specific questions, you listen to them and their answers, and you learn key intel to use in the moment, but also for later. Now, again, this all happened only in the middle 3 minutes. Why? You got a plan. You leverage minutes 2 through 4 with the first 5 minutes framework. Then lastly, you transition into the last minute of the 5 minutes. But this is where conversations usually go off the tracks. If we're built any goodwill at all or poor connection, we usually lose it just as quickly as we gained it because we don't know how to transition into the last of the first 5 minutes. But in the last minute, we think problem and you avoid the 3 common pitfalls. There's 2-step approach that you'll do. And then you move into 5 minutes plus and your sales presentation or your proposal, the main reason you're there. You strategically leverage this last minute, well, to uncover the customer's actual problem using their language, and it sets you up in your position as the subject matter expert who can actually understand and solve the customer's pain point. Did you catch that? Pain point. You've set yourself up perfectly because you've built early connection, trust, and influence. Did you catch that? You finally set yourself up in the first 5 minutes because you've built early connection, trust, and influence. This is the ideal situation in that last minute. But it doesn't happen by chance. You're intentional to leverage, not lose each minute of the first 5 minutes of a business conversation. Can you see the power of a framework? Remember, a framework is a simple, repeatable structure. It's not a rigid script. Again, think guardrails, not handcuffs. They will help you think clearly and act intentionally in a real-world situation, a business conversation. Frameworks also help us to adapt in the moment while we can stay intentional about what's most important. And in this case, it's the what? The first 5 minutes. And that's the magic and power of the first 5 minutes. Now, the first 5 minutes book unpacks the framework in detail, and I'll spend time on each part of the framework in future episodes. Now, I encourage you to pick up the first 5 minutes book on Amazon. It's a quick read, only 100 pages or so, but it's a very practical read due to the structure of the framework. I also offer corporate workshops where teams have a full or even a half day focused time to not only learn the first 5 minutes framework, but also have an extended time to individualize the content for their own personality and their own style. And it's a blast. We learn so much. So if you're a leader wanting to implement the first 5 minutes to your team, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn, my website, brianbuckley.speaks.com, or my email, Brian, B-R-Y-A-N, at brianbuckley.speaks.com. Now, we covered a lot of ground here on this episode, and my Master Evil plan was just not to introduce you to the first 5 minutes framework, but hopefully pique your curiosity and gain some buy-in how you could use the first 5 minutes in all of your future business conversations. Here's a quick sneak peek of episode 14. We'll be focusing in on the 6 connection skills of an elite business connector. Those that are elite in their business communication skills develop very specific skills, and we'll unpack those in the next episode. So here's some closing comments, possible Snyder marks. Episode 13, officially in the books, and now nobody got hurt. And again, I'm on video now, so you would have noticed. Remember to subscribe and to share the podcast. And if you're the extra mild guy or girl, my kind of guy or girl, consider rating the show as well. Don't forget that all the episodes, links, and show notes are available by clicking the show notes option. As we close, I'd actually love to hear from you. Send me an email to my new email address, Brian, B-R-Y-A-N, at brianbuckley.speaks.com with any questions or comments or ideas that you may have. I actually respond to every email. If you doubt me, try me and see what happens. I enjoy these emails, specifically the feedback and the ideas for future episodes, but also I've received a number of guests that I could interview in the future. And as my hometown Chicago Bears chant, good, better, best, never let it rest till your good gets better and your better gets best. As my father used to say, thanks for coming, but most of all, thanks for leaving. I'm out. You got this now.